Alright, Smizzy, so I'm going to put this video together for you here. This is a review of all of last night's content involving the heroic kills that we did. I'm comparing you to individuals in the last 7 days that have a comparison. The closest I could get at times, somewhere 70-80, somewhere 50-60, so that means there could be some tier bonus sets or things like that present, but hopefully this will end up giving some insight. Some of the elements that I can pick up right off the bat is just the amount of times that, for example, certain things are being casted when, as you can see here on Hellfire Assault, you ramped up really good, and then it kind of settles into just a basic rotation at this point, where instead of getting spikes like you could have here, 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 and here, I would imagine these are when groups are coming out. When I looked at the buffs, and you click here at self-applied, you can see that you went from single target at like maybe 5 minutes into the fight, and that's when you switch to multi-target. I would do that a little bit quicker. Get like as soon as the 50% is achieved and the boss leaves, for us to be able to just focus on the assault, focus on the tanks, I would go to multi-target, seal righteousness at that point. You can also see that, for example, on this fight of Valadin, he ended up doing several million more damage than you, and he didn't even use both of his potions. So good job on using your potions there. But I think what we ended up having was just a use of not keeping Final Verdict as active as we could have, for example, in conjunction with using Divine Crusader when the ads were present. So make sure that you're switching those two seals, and then you're properly rotating into using your Divine Storm, you know, and Final Verdict as you can on the targets. Especially when, for example, if you look at when the ring is activated, that's a pretty good time to kind of sequence those in and do it. You're going to probably see that ring go off every 2 minutes consistently, since Gore more than likely is going to be pressing it to sequence his own. So what you want to do is make sure that you get that same sequence being created. As you can see here on Valadin's attempts here, all of this is happening at the same time. And that's really huge to the total damage threshold that you're able to produce there. And yeah, that's for that fight there. Another thing too that I saw was that overall on almost all the fights, you're about 50 to 60 casts that aren't behind what the other person's doing. So I hooked up two different links after talking with Murphy. One is called Bitten's Spellcast, which will give you some insight as far as like it'll flash in the maximum DPS rotation. And then another one is kind of like a Weak Aurora's, where it shows the rotation specifically of what you're going to be doing next to maximize your total damage output. I would suggest you try both of them, and that should help you in your cast area to be more active, and on top of that, to be able to cast them consistently. On the next fight, we have the Iron Reaver, and again, at cast, you missed out on about 50 opportunities to be able to do damage to the boss or to the element. As far as the bombs, so as you can see, Hammer of Wrath for Crowhammer here is 62, where yours is at 24. So he was able to find a third more opportunities to be able to cast Hammer of Wrath, and that's probably relative to being able to go after the target specifically and making sure that they're engaging that opportunity to be able to get it. I think that the Spell Flash will end up helping you with this because it'll highlight it. Another thing too, if you don't have your elements keybinded, I would highly recommend that you watch my keybinding video or one of the other hundreds that are available on YouTube, and then start with just keybinding like 1 or 2, maybe 3 things at this point to just kind of learn to start using them consistently, and then eventually evolve into more active use of it. As you can see here on damage done, you have a really stable outline of damage. In fact, this is where the bombs are. So clearly you only got to maybe a couple of them as far as the opportunity to be able to hit as many as you could have, where they had a little bit more damage in this area here. There's this spike here and spike here, and then this is where it ramped up. So if we take a look at just that part there, you can see that overall their Hand of Light was doing a couple thousand more damage. The Hammer of Wrath was doing about the same damage, but their ring ended up doing 3 times as much damage total, and that's where the difference is right there. He also worked in Templar's Verdict for quite a bit of damage, and also Execution Sentence for quite a bit of damage at that point. So I'll probably check into the buffs at this juncture to see, you know, what was going on as far as what they had going and what didn't. It seems like you had everything active here. There's the ring. Let's see if we can find. It seems this passive ability for Exorcism, and they also had a tier bonus set. So the difference in damage is probably relative to the fact that those were present. So once you get those, naturally you'll be seeing it. Like I said, some of the damage is going to be really clean between one version and another version, just based on the total amount of gear that's present. So, you know, keep working towards the tier, of course, and like I said, try to get more casts of Hammer of Wrath in on targets as you get a chance to, as you rotate through each one. On Cormorant, the big element that I saw was the use, seeing cast again 50, was the use of Divine Storm and Final Verdicts, for example, at the time when the hands come out. If you look at damage done, this is when the hands come out. This is when the hands come out. So there's a issue of ramp up right here too, and I think that's probably like the first hands that went off. You didn't end up getting any Divine Storms casted. You were doing single target at that point when you had the ring and everything active. So I would suggest, for example, using more Divine Storms during hand opportunities just to burn through them quicker and free everybody up. On Hellfire Council is a great opportunity to be able to work, you know, single target damage consistently. The difference, again, we have a spike here, spike here, spike here. And again, it comes down to, I believe, Hammer of Wrath casts. See, they got 90 and you got 40, right? So again, it comes down to recognizing it. And this is something that I think Bittens will help you with, and also that other add-on once you start using it consistently. Because if you look at cast total, they double the amount of hammers thrown, and they double the amount of Crusader strikes that you did. And then they rotated into Final Verdict, and as they had an opportunity to be able to create that damage into the boss as they go. So I would take a look at that, and that'll end up helping you there. And then finally for Kilrog, I tried to find one that was a little bit lower because, you know, if you go in, you get the damage buff, and that makes it really difficult to be able to assess the total damage threshold. The difference in damage was about 2 million total. So naturally we can look at this part here where there's one spike and be able to see the differences that were done. It's Hammer of Wrath again, as far as it being casted. You had 6, they had 14. So I think after speaking with Baloney was like, you know, when Hammer of Wrath is active with your Avenging Wrath and Sanctified Wrath present, that you want to pretty much go Hammer of Wrath, attack, Hammer of Wrath, attack, Hammer of Wrath, attack. And that'll end up helping you out quite a bit when it comes to single target. And then you can look at total casts. You actually were relatively close as far as total casts during that time period. So that's awesome. And you actually had more casts on this fight. So clearly you rotated into a more comfortable rotation. So it's good stuff right there. Good job. There was one though. Okay, so here on Hellfire High Council, the difference in casts was about 130 opportunities total. So I would take a look at this part here and kind of figure out where it is that this was going down. I'll share all these links for you and also this video, so that way you'll be able to take a look at it and be able to have the data readily available for you, okay? Have a great day.